Justin McAleese here with Shoots.video Crew Talk, coming to you live from Fresno, California. Wow. Hey, how you guys doing? What's up?
Good.
Yo.
Good.
Hello.
Woo. Excellent. All right. So in my upper left, I don't know how it looks on your end, but we got the man, the myth, the legend, Ricky Bird. And to
What's
my
up, everybody?
right, we have Travis Clough on the bottom left, Jean-Luc Slagle, and Craig Tepper directly below me. And then we got Chris Loafing. So, yeah, super stoked to have you guys all here. We're going to talk about directing a little bit. Directors here that do different things, which I think is really cool. Different like levels or different approaches, which is I was happy to be able to put you guys together and I think have that variety here. So let's get right into it. I guess real quick, Ricky, give me 20 seconds about what you do.
I just make independent movies, direct and produce, and then write too. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, whatever it takes to get it done.
Really, you focus more on like what would you say? Sort of Victorian things, like very, very proper things, stuff that you would want to show your parents, right?
Yeah, totally. It's real Christian. No, I do like Naked Zombie Girl, Grindhouse, horror, also comedy. I also have another Grindhouse movie called Machine Gun Baby. So, I lose friends, gain friends whenever I make a movie. It's how you know you're doing the right thing, you know.
It's good. I like it. Yeah. The Tremendum guys over on my right here. Tell me what you guys do.
Chris, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, we're myself and Travis of Tremendum Pictures. We do mostly narrative content. We used to do a little bit of commercials and ads and stuff, but we've been fortunate enough to focus on movies and series. Genre-wise, it's usually in the horror thriller space, but we aim to do a lot more, and budget range is usually very low, if not nothing, if anything. Travis, if you want to add anything to that.
No, sadly, it usually is very low. And we did used to do more commercials and stuff. We're open to that now. I mean, we do have to put food on the table. And when you're between movies, it can take forever to get stuff going and to get paid. But
especially in this era. Yeah, it's a thing we all fight to do and get those projects made. Packaging and actually getting anyone signed on the dotted line and get it going is tough. Jean-Luc, tell me what you do.
Yeah, I work at an ad agency. I'm the creative director for a company called Scope Studios, and I direct a lot of commercials, brand films, and shorter like documentaries, but yeah, firmly planted in the ad world, not the narrative side of things.
Totally. Craig Tepper, I think there we go. And what do you do, man?
I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I also direct commercials. I'm a partner in an ad agency called Storyboards, where I'm also the creative director.
Yeah, and that's a new thing for you, right? You just transferred over to that?
Thing.
Yeah.
That is
How's
a new
that going?
thing, yeah.
You want to throw your bosses under the bus? Or
It really got it got going kind of at the beginning of the lockdown. So it's been perfect because I've been able to figure out ways of doing virtual production and remote production, and a little bit now again in New York back to actual on-set shooting. But it's been great. Yeah.
Has that made the difficult things about being a director? Has that helped any of those things or made those more difficult?
It's taken away a lot of the more enjoyable parts of being a director. Being on set, having that camaraderie and having the relationships and collaboration with people in person, which is my favorite part and the most fun part, I think, and the traveling, which I also love. So those are gone. But I've been doing quite a bit of virtual production, like in virtual environments, and I'm kind of amazed to see that even with like a VR helmet on a virtual set, how people act the same way they do on a real set, like how the agency guy standing in the wrong place.
Nice.
There are the wrong people standing in the background of a shot, and you've got to yell to get them out of the way. So it's kind of weird how much it is exactly the same.
Wow. Yeah. People are going to be how people are going to be, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Ricky, what's difficult in your world about being a director? How how are you struggling to put the money on the screen?
The hardest thing is usually wearing multiple hats in my range, like I'm also producing and, crafty, all these different things, whatever, hat while we're directing. So I've had to learn how to like literally take the hat off and not wear all the hats while we're directing, because ultimately it's like the project that suffers, when you're not like putting all the like you said, put on all the everything you can on screen, capturing that gold in the little box, because you never get to sit with anybody and say, hey, we were having a hard day that day. That's why these shots look like shit, or crap. Sorry. So
yeah. What do you, when you're putting together a crew, and then let's say you got a little bit extra money, you can hire one more person. What's the next person you would put on usually? It's sort of hard to say without knowing what your crew was, I guess, but what's the most important person for you to have?
I think like as far as the team, like as far as like my department, I guess would be the AD. And I'm blessed to have my wife as my AD. So it's pretty cool that I get to save. It's a give or take on saving in that department or whatever. But
sure, yeah.
Yeah. But that part I think is the most crucial. But like on like an indie set, I think, people that are important are definitely like your gaffer and, DP, and then, your sound guy are very important. And then if I have extra money, I try to focus on, maybe getting another person to help out those departments, just to kind of lighten the load. So that way we're all staying creative and not getting exhausted after long shoot days and stuff. Because I think that's like super crucial, keeping that positive energy,
Yeah.
So.
Same sort of thing for you, Jean-Luc. If you're going from say a 3-person crew to a 4 or 5-person crew, how do you add value? Who do you put on that crew?
Yeah, I'd say it probably depends. It changes depending on the size of your production too. Like when you're more insulated as the director and you have other layers, your money naturally goes to different places. I would say the same thing though. I think one of the lessons that I've learned over time is just how important the gaffer is, and having someone that can pay attention to how the scene is lit, but also the emotional implications of how the scene is lit. And, I think camera department always gets the bad rap for like wanting all the money, but I think I've learned I would rather spend more money on like lighting, maybe art direction, having good art direction, rather than, I don't know, the difference between like a really nice set of lenses and like a really, really nice set of lenses. I feel like that money is probably better spent on art department, like pre-production, costume and wardrobes, things like that have maybe in my world, have a disproportionate effect on like final output and production value for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things when I go talk to like high schoolers or college kids is I always say, like, if you have the opportunity to rent a different set of lenses that's slightly better for another $200, don't buy curtains. Like buy a lamp.
Yeah.
Put stuff in the background that's going to be super obvious. I mean, you're going to know the difference between the lenses maybe, but other people are going to be like, oh, not a white wall. That's a way better shot.
Yeah, and I feel like the tendency, especially like early on in people's careers, like shoot it on better cameras. We're going to shoot this on the red, and then like we've probably all been a part of some terrible projects that were shot on the red. And it's like, just because you have a red doesn't mean it's going to be a successful project. So I think the prep work, the pre-production, the art direction, like there are little staple pieces here and there that I think you can put into a production that makes it look more expensive than it is. That's for sure. And that's something that I've tried to do, I'm pretty early on in my career, but I've tried to do that a couple times, like find the one thing that's going to make this look like if it's a $50,000 project, that's going to make it look like $100,000 project,
Yeah. It's being very conscious of that. Craig, I feel like you've worked on probably the most expensive things of maybe the people on some of the things we worked on. And tell me the difference sort of between a big crew, a big set, and a small crew, small set, and like why one would be better than the other sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, the nature of the director's job changes, I think. When you have a really small crew, I mean, oftentimes, if it's a really small crew, it means I'm shooting. It means I'm the DP too, which, for an interview shoot or a small doc shoot, that's great. For a commercial, that's not great. You've got other things you should be worrying about. Especially if you're the DP and you don't have a good AC and you're worried about or you don't have if you're worried about the lighting, you're worried about is your shot in focus, you're worried about did you remember to hit, did you roll, did you remember to roll? Because that's the worst feeling there is if you're the director and you didn't roll on a good take. So that's a totally different job than managing a set with a giant crew and a lot of clients and a lot of it's a very, you spend your time doing very different things. We've worked together on jobs with fairly big crews, and we did one job in particular with a ton of clients on the set. I think we had, you could measure them in the dozens actually.
And they probably were double to triple what we were.
That's right. And so that job was it was very political. It was mostly being a politician and making sure people were happy and communicating between departments and communicating between different visions and trying to keep the train on the tracks.
Yeah, so much.
And there wasn't a lot of time to be creative.
Yeah, so much of what you did, I think, on that shoot was very much just playing with different people's personalities and letting them all feel heard and letting them get their opinions out and all that stuff. And there wasn't a whole lot of time to reinvent the wheel on anything. It was more just taking all this input and letting everyone feel like they got a say.
Yes. And that's a very different kind of role. I mean, I enjoy doing both, and I think the perfect situation is if you're kind of doing half and half, where you have enough support that where you can focus on the creative aspects that really interest you, but with that support comes a kind of managerial role where you're dealing with lots of different personalities, and I think when you're balancing that kind of 50-50, that's kind of the sweet spot, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of some stuff I've been through. And for the guys on the right, Tremendum guys, I've been on set sometimes, and let's say I was on a big production the week before or whatever, and someone's handing you iced tea whenever you want it. And there's the comforts of things. And then the next week, you're simultaneously trying to hold up the silk, and you're trying to pull focus, and you're trying to run everything at once, and it sort of sucks. How do you guys have any come to Jesus moments where you're like, oh man, I thought I was something and now I feel like nothing, trying to hold everything together on a shoestring? You tell me about something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we have never had anyone bring in iced tea. That sounds glorious. Our team has been great in trying to make it feel like there are moments like that, which is great, but we really do work on such a smaller, tight budgets, and everyone's participating in some way usually, or they're going to, and that's why we're able to do things much tighter. And we do put a lot more into getting the scene, if it's set pieces or props or things like that. I think everyone that we work with kind of realizes that we want it to come out as good as it can become. And I feel like they know that we, in post, we'll do everything we can to make it look like $1 is equal to $1,000. But yeah, man, we've been on some, we've seen some sets, not ours, that it's dang, they got assistants to the directors. That's awesome. And assistants to the assistants.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole different ball game. And I think people, when they get into this business, maybe they don't realize that it's often going to scale to those extremes. Unless you're absolutely upper echelon people, you are gonna run the gamut in terms of how it feels on set to have no support or total support. And it's not the people involved; it's just the lack of money and lack of people.
We've been told that on everything we've done that we've been understaffed. On everything that other people have said, you're way understaffed. But at the same time, we also realize that in bigger productions, there's a lot of waste. And people have told us, they complain that there's 200 people sitting around on their phones. And what's going on? That's a lot of money. And for indie guys, I mean, you guys know on these smaller projects that really you're completely responsible for, any extra person is just it's painful to think of the cost of that. Not that you don't want them or need them, because you do. And you're I would love to have you and 10 more of you. I just can't afford it,
No, and that's the thing too, is like they'll be like, I want to be a PA, I'll be there. And you're like, yeah, but you're going to park and eat and shit. And I have to account for that. And that's hard. That's like a lot of stuff to worry about when you add on 5 people. If they're not actually contributing to what's happening, it's like rough.
Yeah. And with the COVID stuff now too, like this most recent shoot that Justin, actually, you came and helped us with, we kept our crew tighter than I think we normally would have, just because of having extra people on set. Like it was more COVID tests that we had to do, more people we had to get temperatures for, and like, you know, distancing, and it was a tight space and all this stuff. And it's like, you know, that's another factor that we now have to deal with as well.
And it wasn't even a union thing. It was just, we were trying to like see how well we would do abiding by the new guidelines, however stringent or egregious they may appear to be to producers, of course, which I think they are. It's a little overboard. I think a lot of actors feel the same way, but hopefully they'll find the right middle ground to, you know, where people aren't just knee-jerk reacting to it and have more data and can do things that will allow people to get back to it in a good way, still taking proper precautions and stuff.
Yeah, I think like Craig said, like people are going to be people, and like as far as the mask thing goes, like it's funny how you could see someone be completely hygienic in all the certain ways and then totally ruin it with some other thing, and then you're like, wait, that you're supposed to have the thing cover the thing, not the. And it's just, that stuff's always funny to me. The inconsistency is crazy. Hey Ricky, you wrote a book. What book did you write that Justin McAleese helped to write a chapter for?
Yes. I have a book called Cheap Movie Tricks. It's a book that I got published through Mango Media. I got approached to write a book because I'm known for guerrilla filmmaking. So it was a stretch because I've only read like 3 books in my life. So I had to learn how to read before I could write it. So that was a huge hurdle. But you know, it's a good book. And actually now, since COVID happens, we're selling a crap ton of them.
Wow.
So that's been great. I mean, I only get a real small percentage because, you know, I'm not really good at math. So I usually get screwed when I get my royalty check. I'm like, wow, you sold a bunch. I should be getting, oh, wait, that's my check. So, but it's still cool, and it's helping out a lot of filmmakers. And it's just a brief overview, though. I think there's been some haters on my book saying that it doesn't go in depth enough. And it's more or less just trying to give someone like an overview how they could shoot their own film for a couple G's, and, you know, make it work with, you know, like just the essentials you need to get it shot, the do's and don'ts. And then, you know, I wish I could do a updated version because I've read some more books and, you know, shot some more features and more short films. And there's even more stuff I, you know, want to put in that book, but you know,
what's one thing you would add to it? What's like one trick or one thing that really feels like it's putting the money on the screen?
I would say like the blocking. So what I like to do is I think a lot of things that lack in indie films, especially like we're talking like budget realms, like what I mess with, like under $5,000 on a short film sometimes, you know, or like a grand or whatever, but it's just moving and blocking with your actors. So taking your talent and you give your talent what I call business. That's like an acting term, you know, you give them their business. So like this one's doing something here, the other person's doing something over there, and you kind of shift the camera around that world to kind of help tell the story. And I think that adds production value without, you know, like trying to overlight or trying to, you know, like get all crazy where you're spinning around or staying on a shot forever. But that's one thing that I would really, you know, and we've kind of like been working with tricks, you know, to kind of keep the camera moving, get the actors comfortable in their movements, and kind of like, you know, make it flow a little bit better. But that would be one major thing that I've learned.
For sure. Yeah. I feel like business has killed like 10 million people, because back every other decade, they're like, I need something to do. Can I get a cigarette? Can I just have a cigarette in this scene?
Right.
And it's the cigarettes happen in all movies forever.
No more newspapers. No more newspapers or cigarettes.
Yeah, I know. What are you gonna do? Everyone's just like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, eating is another one. Like everyone, like Brad Pitt and Ocean's 11, just eating.
Yeah.
He always likes to eat, but yeah, I think that kind of stuff makes it natural and makes it feel like you're peering into someone's life instead of forcing a story upon somebody. You know, I like to like let the viewer like feel like they're, you know, like with them, you know, and they're part of something like coming, you know what I mean, to kind of like establish it. And I think that helps establish, you know, the environment for your story.
Craig, you're doing a lot of docs and things like that. And do you need to insert those things into it to give people stuff to do, or is it always there just because that's the nature of the beast? How do you make that stuff?
Well, it depends what kind of doc. It depends what kind of doc you're making. I mean, if you're doing a very kind of like, you know, cinema verite, direct cinema doc where you're following action, you're just following action, right? You're fly on the wall kind of thing.
Sure.
Most of the time, my approach is I rarely. It's more common for me to make a doc about events that have already occurred.
Okay.
Or to construct a story out of something. So my approach is more like a scripted approach. So I'm trying to come up with scenarios. I'm trying to put people in a set or a scene that makes sense and furthers the story, and not just shoot talking head interviews and not just follow people doing their normal daily lives. I'm trying to construct a reality a lot of the time, like you would in a scripted film.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that when they're like, I just want to watch what's happening. And you're like, yeah, it's going to be dull.
No, you wouldn't like it.
Yeah, it's not worth watching.
I mean, people don't think reality shows are made up. I mean, people don't realize that reality shows are scripted and there are multiple takes. And they're, you know, I think people are fairly ignorant about, I mean, I also think, you know, another thing is people are always talking to me about, oh, where do you think they shoot that show? Or like, where do you think that apartment is? And you're like, it's a set. And they're like, or the house in Breaking Bad. Well, the exterior was an actual house, but the interiors are set. And they refuse to believe it. And
yeah,
you have to explain to them you can't take over someone's house whenever you feel like it for a shoot day, you know, on a series. Like, you know, I think people are shocked at how many things they watch are actually set.
Yeah. There's this couple sideboards, but there's a scene on The Simpsons where they're shooting the Fall Out Boy or the Radioactive Man thing, and Homer's like, they asked if we could shoot here. They gave us $50 a day, and he's like, yeah. I said, yeah. And they come in there, they're immediately putting hammers through walls,
punch a hole through the wall to put the cable through.
Just immediately, yeah. But yeah, you used to see on the old Monty Python show when you would watch, and now for something completely different. Because they would shoot the stuff, everything that was on a stage was on video, and everything that wasn't was on film. And it was drastically
the old BBC
different.
rules. Yeah, the old BBC rules were that you could only shoot video in a 3-camera studio camera set up on a stage, and anytime you took a camera outside, it had to be 60 millimeter. So until some point in the 70s. So like even the early Doctor Who and all of that are shot that way, which I love that look. I love the reality that interiors are video, exteriors are film.
It's really so cool. Much different. Yeah, because they didn't the film was never treated, so it's super flat. It's like everything's log. It's just way different.
And different crews. I mean, different everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Insane. Let's see. What else? More hacks. Does anyone else have something that they love to do that just makes a scene that's missing something that much better, even on paper or when you're on set? No. I gave I handed
flares.
What'd you say? Flares, yes, flares. Right? Just put a light shooting right into the lens. Yes.
Yeah. I know that is overdone, but there's been a couple times when we've been on a set, and you know, my world's a little bit different than the narrative world. But there are certain things that you can do to like haze a lens a little bit or warm a lens a little bit that often do add just a touch of pop to something that doesn't quite have that commercial flair. It's not going to save a bad location or save a bad scene, but like I think there are lots of little aesthetic choices you can make that add maybe 10% like extra polish on top of something that feels a little bit more natural than, you know, just adding Andrew Kramer's optical flares in After Effects.
Yeah. Well, and if you're not editing, then who's going to, you don't know that the dude later is going to do that. Whoever.
Yeah, right. Or like my favorite thing right now is to point out like everyone loves anamorphic flares. And you're like, that's not an anamorphic camera. Like I can see circular bokeh in the background and you have an anamorphic flare.
You just put it on top of it. Yeah. I do. There's some shots that I've taken pictures and put them on Instagram or whatever. And it's like, if I have a 50 mil lens and I'm at like a F3, F2, somewhere in there, you can put gaff tape, like basically right on the lens, and you'll never know. You could sort of do it there almost. And it just becomes like to darken that little bit.
Gradient filter.
Yeah, it's a little bit of gradient. No one would ever know. You can't tell at all. And it's something that you can, it might happen later. Someone might put it in, but I can do it.
You do the same thing with a flashlight at the edge of the frame, and do the opposite, where you're just having that little bit of light kind of create. Yeah. You know, it's kind of the positive version of the negative thing you're creating with that gaff tape.
Absolutely, and I think that stuff's really useful. And you pick those things up over time, and you also find out when not to do that over time, and that's like a really good experience thing.
And then the beauty of that is that now you can add a gradient filter back into a line item and add that to the final.
Perfect.
Another thing I like to do is to not make a big deal out of rolls and cuts, and not have people be sure when you're rolling. Sometimes, like if a scene's feeling really static and things aren't happening, is to roll and not let people know it, and try to catch natural behavior and try to get something going without all of the pressure of rolling and cutting. Sometimes that's a great way to get things that are lifeless to be livened up.
Yeah, a lot of times on the interviews, that's a good thing. When you're doing with people who are not very experienced, or maybe they're not used to being on camera at all.
Or working with kids.
Or with kids or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Kids, most definitely.
Kids or animals. Or animals.
Yeah. Style too. I mean, we do it with kids, but we did it a lot with our first movie, which was found footage, The Gallows. We have a whole slew of clips and pieces in it that we just captured. You know, there's, a couple of the extras were, playing some game in the backstage area, it's patty cake, and I was like,
roll on that.
Like, it's funny seeing high school kids doing that, and it made it into the movie. It was just a funny little part about high school life. You know what I mean? Just, the drama kids doing patty cake in the background, and but we caught a lot of little moments like that were much more realistic because they were real, And
and if you would have said, hey guys, okay, so right now we're going to play patty cake, they'll be like, that's stupid. No one would ever do that. It would look really dumb on camera, and then you grab it and it works.
Yeah.
But mixing those realities, mixing the more stage stuff with the more, natural stuff that you capture just creates such a great feeling. I mean, I think it's what's great about a lot of like 70s American movies was directors were doing that sort of thing. They were capturing a lot of natural behavior along with a scripted behavior, so those films have a certain vibe that's kind of gone now. But it's a great thing to do, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That can be some of the most true moments in those things. I was AC on a movie in Iowa 11 years ago, and the DP got mad at me the first day because I cut when the director said cut. I was on it, and he's like, don't ever cut. You wait till I tell you to cut, because there's going to be something that happens right after that happened, right after he said cut, and that'll be the best moment. It'll stay in the movie. Believe me. So like the whole rest of the time, cut. Okay, cool.
That little moment before you yell action or say cut sometimes is the best, or right after you say cut are sometimes the best little bits for an editor.
Right.
Yeah. We had a question. Do we find benefits in storyboarding a film or storyboarding a project? Ricky, do you get storyboards very much?
Well, I find benefits in it simply because, like, for my movie Naked Zombie Girl, we had no script. There's no lines in the whole movie. So I actually wrote really crappy stick figures, and we were like planning out our shot that way. So we told the story like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, another, like, we did a movie called Home Free, and we just ran around and shot stuff. So that was more of like a mumblecore style film. So we didn't really we just did script. So I feel like it just depends on what kind of movie you're going to do, or if you're going to try to do something special effects. Because we have another one of our films called The Video Store, and we actually built miniatures and stuff of the Bakersfield Bridge and this clock tower here in Bakersfield. And so we had to storyboard a lot of that stuff out to kind of figure out what the things were going to look like once they were finished. But I think it's like a mixed bag. I mean, sometimes they're really needed, and sometimes it might be, especially if you don't know your location that well, or you're just writing a script and then you're just writing it, some people just do the storyboard right after they have the script. They don't even know where the hell they're going to shoot it or have any confirmed locations. And that's just a huge waste of time.
Yeah, Jean-Luc, I know that we get storyboards on a lot of what we shoot for you. Things that are very specific 30-second spots and things like that. Tell me why those are so valuable to you.
Yeah, well, I think in the commercial world and in the ad world, I'm not the only person that has to be on board with the main idea. There's at least 3 or 4 other people that have to agree with the thing that we're trying to put together. So rather than, just kind of show up and try to make the assets work together, it's imperative that we get both the client, and a lot of times there's another agency on board and another creative director. So storyboards are like the most concise way to present the idea beforehand, get everyone on the same page beforehand. And that way, when you're on set, you can still collaborate on so many decisions that you have to make during a day. But you're not spending unnecessary creative energy figuring out like, okay, what exactly are we trying to accomplish here? The map is very clear what we're trying to accomplish. Now we can put our creative energy into making this feel authentic, or maybe trying to get this certain moment from two people. You know, it feels like a storyboard does the sort of boring heads down work. It doesn't have to be boring, but it does some of that like logistical work. It puts it, you know, in the earlier on in the process. So on the day of shooting, you can put your creative energy into what you really need to put your creative energy into.
Yeah, I find that it also, what do you want to say? It is insurance for what you're doing, because a lot of times, you know, the client might be like, well, I thought we were going to get this. And we're like,
no, exactly.
This thing right here is what we agreed on.
Sure.
And we're doing that. Exactly. Do we want to change it?
And a lot of times you can grab more stuff. You can grab more stuff, or like there have been lots of good things that I know we've worked on where like we had a new idea that was better than what we started with, or like in collaboration, when you have a great crew, you can make something that, you know, the sum is greater than the parts, right? And you want that natural, organic collaboration to happen on. But yeah, it's like that safety net, like you said, that at least we're going to get something that's at least this good. And then if people collaborate well on set, you know, the bar can be lifted.
I feel like it's almost like a visual contract between you and the person that you're working with. You know, like you have people write out words and we're making something visual for them. And so they're kind of like approving the story. And then we're, you know, trying to, you know, put those pictures into fruition for them, right. You know, and then allowing, you know, so definitely on that realm, totally would do those. Yeah. Cause we've had a couple commercials where people were really specific where they wanted to shoot it, what they wanted the shots to look like, you know, and then same, you know. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Craig, Travis, anyone?
I think when the timing is really specific, the timing on screen, action scenes, effect scenes, and even just 30-second spots when you know you've got to hit all of these actions in 30 seconds, or sometimes, you know, less, like 15 now. You've got to make all these things happen in 15 seconds. I think it's really helpful to have boards for something like that.
Totally. Yeah. 2S, 3S, 1S, 2S, 3S. You're like, oh, I know what I have to do in each of these timelines. Yeah, because it, and also it for me too, when you're doing playback, you end up, a lot of times what ends up happening is you shoot something and it's good for 4 seconds, and then the end of the last 2 seconds suck. And the people watching it who don't really understand how it's going to be chopped are like, well, what about that thing? And they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Shut up. It doesn't matter at all. And they're like, I don't like the end of that. And you're like, it doesn't matter. That'll never be used. We're only using this.
That's why you need to make sure your monitor is the only one that has the playback.
Yeah. That too.
Or you set those, you can set those in and out points and loop it. So that they can,
I'm like, that's all we care about.
It's also a bad call with actresses too, because they're like, well, I wasn't ready for this part. You guys were filming. It's like that's obviously not going to be in the movie. You know what I mean? Right. You know, they're like blowing their nose or, you know, getting away or whatever. Yeah.
You're like, I won't keep it. It's not, that's not a thing.
They require like advance notice for showing any of that in the BTS or, you know, like I need to know and see and approve. No, I was picking my nose. You can't show that. You know, they work that into their contracts. But I think for us, we do so much that's like on the day because our budgets are so, you know, they're just so tight. But if we have a group of people that we're working with that is like, hey, whatever, let's do all the prep together so we all know what we're doing and we can all, you know, make it a really great thing. And there's time ahead of time. It's such a great way to communicate what the shot's going to be without having to like explain it. Oftentimes I'll try to tell someone something and I'm just doing a terrible job. But like if I can, even though the drawings are also terrible, but if I can take and do like so the family eating at the table and then the boy is going to be like this. And then here's the wide, you know, and then
love it.
That's at first. And then if we can go in and like, once we find a location and it's like, okay, well, we go take some pictures. Yeah. This is what it's going to look like. Here we go. And this, and he's doing the Heimlich on that person. And the kid is like, what the heck? And so for me, I'm a visual guy, and it's just so much easier. We do that with trailers. We do that with, Chris, we do that with all kinds of concepts, movie concepts, and that we will pitch to, other people in Hollywood and stuff. And it's easier for us to do that than to show them a script, because we're not like great writers. We happen to be able to execute things really well from a maybe so-so script that we've done. People are like, wow, this is a great movie. Like, I'd love to see the script. And we're like, you would have thought the script was garbage. It was not as good.
Yeah. That's the goal. You hope that everything gets better at each step. The script is as good as you can make it. And then during production, like some happenstance that really turns out great for you also takes place, a little bit of magic. And then once you get into editing, you're like, oh, that thing that sucked, I can totally fix it now. That's really why all three
but it helps with the
endeavors are great.
specificity of the vision, I think. Having the storyboards, to me, and we haven't done it all the time. We've done it a couple of times. And every time, though, it's been very helpful. And in just being able to specify what you're expecting to get from the DP, from anyone that's on there with you, and it helps you have a better shot of making the day, even though you might, when you pack it in like we do, you might end up having to cut a couple shots or call someone in clutch to get the last maybe 3 shots of the day, like Justin on that.
No idea what you're talking about. But tell me about working with actors, about working with talent, some like do's and don'ts, what you guys have learned over time about what works and what doesn't.
I'd say for we, again, because of budget constraints, we haven't had a lot of time to do rehearsals, but whenever we do, man, it's so much better. It's so much more helpful. And the ones where we have had time is usually if it's like my kids or like, people that we know, and it's like, hey, let's rehearse this. And we can just do it, on the side, and it doesn't have to be some big thing, but it helps the scene so much better. Like this thing we shot with my son, he like had all his lines memorized, even the Korean ones. And, and it turned out really good that he was the most prepared of everyone there.
Oh, nice.
There were a couple of moments where I was like, oh, I don't know if it was just a rehearsal, but the 2 other actors in the scene, they like immediately were 1,000 times better in the actual second run. But the first one, it was just like, oh, hey, what was it? And it was just like, oh my gosh, my son's thrown off because he's the only one prepared. And if they're not, and they throw him odd lines, how is he going to do? It turned out he did okay, but they also, picked it up after the rehearsal. But anytime you can rehearse before the main event and really get the muscle memory of those things into the mind and body of at least the main character in the scene, that will really help, strengthen the extra auxiliary characters and supporting characters.
It's more of a time thing, I think. It's like you don't want to necessarily kill the spontaneity of something magical on set. You don't want to like rehearse it to death that something unique can't happen, but there's so much time that's wasted when you're on set with all these people, and it's like, okay, let's block through it and rehearse it and do it again. And it's like, if you can cut down that time, that's more takes you can get in the camera,
good takes as well.
Yeah, good takes, like usable take.
Start out without rehearsal, and it's like, oh shoot, like we got a long way to go for this to get it to where it needs to be. You cut all that out in the rehearsals ahead of time, and then you're kind of working with like the cream, the top, takes that you would have gotten. So yeah, it saves you time, Chris. That's a good
totally. One thing I would say is that comedy has a sort of different set of rules for rehearsal for what works for me. And I find that like if you're doing a table read a week before, awesome. You guys get to work through it and you kind of maybe develop some repartee that wasn't there. But if you have them deliver 2 takes, like while you're finishing lighting or any of that stuff, you may never get it back. And that's something that's basically impossible to pinpoint what they were doing that was funny, because it's such a nuanced thing in my experience that like, I don't ever really want them to perform on any comedy thing until I'm rolling and until I'm like, everything else is dialed in enough to where we could actually keep it. But drama is a totally different thing, and it often gets better on the 4th take. Do you guys,
Right.
you're nodding.
Agreed. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I agree. What I do is, because usually we're, low budget, working with friends, family members, or whoever we can get, projects vary, but what I do is I just have everyone who's in that scene, rehearsing that scene while we're lighting and setting up camera. And I just sit there and work with them and get it kind of vetted out. So that way it's natural to them. And they're not just playing jump rope with lines where they're waiting for the next person to say the lines. And that's what happens a lot of times, is actors get caught or married to a version of the character that they've been practicing in the mirror forever. And I try to shake that off of them after a few, because usually I've noticed when we're filming, about 3 or 4 takes in any shot, unless it's like something super simple, I don't get the performance I want. So it's better to just get those irons, kind of ironed out. But on the comedy realm, I get what you're saying, because like on Border Brothers, we would have moments, and then what happens is we try to artificially create those moments again. And I think that's what makes reality TV for me so stale, is you have people trying to recreate, those kind of moments in reality television. And I think you're right. It's probably better, especially like if it's a really important scene, but any kind of dialogue, just because it's so, I think, Indy, another thing is like actors sounding natural, is letting them say it over and over again in that space, and letting them feel comfortable. So that way, because, that's what we're trying to do. We're like, zookeepers trying to make the habitat look, legit or whatever, so we can't have people that are, know all the lines, and they're like, oh, well, he didn't say his other line. Well, it doesn't matter, just flow, have a conversation. So
yeah, I think there's a danger in comedy when you see something that works and then telling the actor what it was and recreate it. Once they know what it is, it becomes impossible to do. Yeah. So sometimes you're just giving direction to, like, you'll just do it faster, or just do it again. Or and you're just trying to create a pace, or just trying to create an atmosphere where it can happen again. Yeah. Because you can't make it happen. Right. So, you'll be just like, do it again, and the crew's looking at you like you're crazy and you don't know what you want, but you're just trying to trigger that magic again. You can't say what it is, or you'll destroy it.
Oh man, it's so fleeting. It's just it's the most impossible thing to grab again. And you knew it during rehearsal that you weren't rolling. Yeah, that's it. Do that again, and then it's just gone forever. Yeah.
I think to your point, Craig, and I think Ricky, you kind of said it earlier, but it's almost like the better part of directing is you're creating this like obstacle course for people to run through. And I think it's easy, especially in commercials, but I'm sure in narrative work too, to like fall into the like do it like this kind of trap. Never. And and I think that's something I kind of saw early on in the commercial scene. It was like, that's very, as soon as you start doing that, it's like very ineffective and very stale. Yeah. It seems so much like you get stuff that's so much more natural and interesting to watch when, as the director, you just kind of create these set of circumstances, and then people do things in those circumstances. And then you're more of just like an arbiter curator, where you're like, it needs to go quicker, or like you're standing in the wrong spot. But it's more like, as a director, you're responsible for creating the artificial scenario, and then just letting humans do the things that they do,
Yeah,
definitely.
I find that it's line reads is sort of what you're talking about. And, the best explanation I have for that is like giving an actor a line read is, hopefully they're a better actor than you are. That's why you hired them to be actors. And all it is you, as not a great actor, saying a thing, and then they're supposed to do their own version of you as a bad actor. And they're probably not great at doing impressions. So their impression of a bad actor, that's what you want on screen. Like, that's never going to work out.
Yeah, I think Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I consider having to give someone a line reading like a failure of mine. Like, I consider that like my failure to communicate, or my failure to create an environment, or my failure to express what we're after. Unless, and this has happened a few times, where I'm working with very, very seasoned actors, very experienced actors, and they know we're trying to get this specific, like, especially for a commercial, where you're trying to say the name of the product, or you're trying to deliver some ingredients or something that's really hard to, get out naturally.
Sure.
And they'll say, just give me a reading for that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I consider that to be like, I really screwed up if I'm giving an actor a line reading.
And it's it's the thing that when you're getting started, you haven't had that much experience being a director. It's the thing you assume you're supposed to do.
Well, because that's what they show you in movies. They show the director doing that in movies. Oh, that's the director's job. Okay, and it's the opposite, I think, of the director's job.
It's really weird.
Most definitely.
I think the danger, though, is that you can do the equivalent of that to any role on set. You know, you can like think you know more than the
100%
DP or the gaffer, and like, you know, oh, stem up that light, you know, another 2 feet, and it's like, it's so much better to engage people on like, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Help me accomplish that thing, rather than to, you know, take the like authoritarian role, which I've seen in the ad world, you know, probably more than the narrative world. I'm not sure, but it does seem like there's a tendency for some people to like want to dictate their vision through each department, and it seems like it's so much more effective, and you get a better end product when you're able to like cast vision, but then let people who are professionals at their job like do
their job,
and you're gonna get the credit for it anyway. Everyone's gonna think you came up with all the, you know what I mean? Like, let them do it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. No. Totally.
My
I agree 100%.
It's like as a writer, because when you're writing, you're not supposed to put in camera direction necessarily, or like editing direction or anything like that. If you're doing it for yourself, that's one thing. It's like an internal note. But if you're writing for someone else, you're not supposed to do that. So the writer's job, in my estimation, is to like be so clear as to have the director know exactly what to do in those moments to execute that most properly, right? And then the same thing when you get the actors is you want to be so clear in creating the world and describing the situation for their character or whoever it is, so that they can most properly execute that. And then as an editor, hopefully you're constructing a scene in such a way that it is so clear what is happening in the scene, what it's about, that the audience can then construct their perfect version and understand exactly what is happening and why. But you're never telling them what to feel or what to think. You're just creating the situation so that then they can make their best decisions. That's why I approach it. Any more thoughts on that, or should we go to composing? We have a question about from a composer. How do you find composers for your projects, and how can composers pitch their music to you?
How do you find producers that'll give you enough money to hire a composer or not?
That's a good question.
It's a tough thing.
I get random messages on Facebook constantly from composers, and that's how I pick them. No, not really. Don't send me random. I get that. That's like, it's almost like, you know, you get that weird mail and then here's another composer. But
it's hard.
I feel like it's a hard game because, you know, it's like, you know, as technology gets easier and more obtainable for more people, you know, it makes, you know, other people come into a space and make it, you know, like kind of you drown out all the other people. But usually I have friends that I use that I like, or, you know, whatever company I'm using, they, you know, get the stuff, or we go on to like, you know, sites and get our own crap, you know, like for corporate videos or whatever, getting something from, you know, Audio Blocks or, you know, something like that. But composing's a hard one.
A good approach for like modern composers, maybe that don't have quite as many large scale gigs, would be to like try to get your music on Film Supply or Music Bed, or like try to get into the licensing game. Because I think for us, for sure, for advertising, the majority of commercials, even larger ones, are not necessarily building it from scratch every time. They're you know, taking out a license, and if you get one of those, like, that's a crazy good gig.
Yeah. What used to be the funniest thing was when Soundtrack Pro came out, and
you heard the same music and the same.
You heard all these little stupid things that were on GarageBand, like free stuff.
That's a footstep.
Yeah. Oh man, you hear it in big budget stuff too.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. Like
totally
commercials, and you'd be like, "I've used that crappy loop before."
Yeah, it's a Pepsi commercial. Yeah,
I hear it with wind a lot. Like there's certain wind sounds that I've used from like Soundtrack Pro loops or whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, I know that's that wind sound.
There's a guy at home somewhere. A guy recorded that wind sound.
Stuff. There's a funny story.
The Wilhelm scream too.
Oh, sorry.
Is in everything, and then that one. There's this one audio clip of kids laughing.
Yeah.
I guarantee you've heard it in like 50 Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then it's in like every commercial ever.
It's like the Mannheim scream.
The Wilhelm
scream.
Laughing.
I was about to say, I was about to say our sound designer actually has the original recording of the Wilhelm scream, and he played it for us when we were mixing our movie, and you can actually hear the director directing the guy through different takes. It's a series of takes, and you hear all of them at once, and then the final direction, you hear the director in the background. He's like, no, more of like a scream of pain, and then the guy's like, and it's the one, it's so funny. I'm like, that's like a piece of history right there.
One of the best directors of all time.
Yeah, it worked. That's great. Let's end on a high note. What's the biggest mistake you made as a director? What's the dumbest thing you did?
Every time I show up on the set, I was like, what? No, I'm just joking. I don't know. I've done a lot of dumb stuff. Yeah, we've taken stuff where I've been totally off. Like I'll get a phone call or telling someone to shut all their phones off, and then we're right in the middle of the take, and it's
the worst.
But it's like my alarm, so it's my phone's silent, but it's my alarm. Yeah, and it's all
like, who is that?
And everyone's all real professional. Or are you just telling someone to shut their, And it's happened to me more oftentimes than not. But I need alarms to remember to do certain things. So. It sucks when you put your phone on silent, but yeah, exactly. So,
cool. I'm doing it. Good job, Siri.
Thanks for the reminder. Oh, we're rolling.
Yeah. I think one lesson that I've learned, maybe not at one time, but like slowly over lots of projects, is when you're in any sort of collaborative environment and you're in any degree of control, I think it's always so much more effective to communicate and make decisions about the merit of the thing and not about this personality or that personality. And I think it's really easy to let our language go there in subtle ways. Like, no, let's not do it like that. I don't like it like that, So when you're talking to a DP, like, I don't really like that lens, there's no real merit in that argument. But when you say like, this lens doesn't achieve what this project needs in that particular moment, it's not about me versus the DP. It's about what the project itself needs. And I don't think I'd never had any, big explosive confrontation with another person. But anytime that you're in a collaborative environment and you make decisions on like a personal level, I think it's a net loss for the production for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. I always tell
the biggest mistakes happen offset sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally.
The relationships between you and other people, or
Right.
Well,
when I'm talking to maybe a producer, someone who might not fully understand how this stuff works, I'm always trying to default to like, well, it works usually in this way to do this, or people find that when they want to accomplish this thing, they usually make it this way.
This is the correct approach,
Yeah. Right. You don't say like, I like. It's always like, other people like, and they're like, oh, I like other people. That sounds like a good idea.
Is that not passive aggressive?
No, I try to go aggressive if I can. That's a way. What were you saying, Chris?
Going off of what Jean-Luc said, at least for movies, especially, you're on set with the same group of people for, day after day after day. And another mistake that we've learned to, that has happened to us, but thankfully we've resolved it in previous things, is if there's a confrontation between a couple people on set or a group of people are having some kind of issue and they just didn't bring it to us just because they don't want to bother us, we still have to know about it. We still have to get that resolved. We can't have that tension on set and people, at each other's throats behind the scenes or in front of the scenes sometimes. And so resolving that stuff, talking it out, getting everyone on the same page, whatever drama or conflict there is, it's like, you got to squash that. You can't let it keep going. It'll ruin your set. It'll put a bad taste in your mouth at the end of every day. And
oftentimes it's a misunderstanding of what the person is saying or their personality type. It's like, man, why are they saying that to me? It's garbage. And you don't realize that the person saying it is not a very tactful person. You have to like understand that they were maybe like the person with glasses in elementary school. They were like, well, I might, and you're like, oh, that helps me understand where they're coming from a lot better. And then that person is like, oh, I sound mean when I say that. So you kind of go at it. You can just be upfront with people. We've had times where it's like, hey, what you're saying right here sounds really mean to other people.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know you're not being mean, but you sound mean right now. And you're like, oh crap, that's a problem. It's like, I know, but so just work on that. And then the other person's like, oh, you mean you weren't trying to be mean? Oh, okay. I guess we're friends now. And, for us, like Chris was saying, like, you got to get that stuff right away. If it festers and you don't know about it, like, it's like, oh crap,
Yeah, it could blow up.
Yeah, and then you want to cover it right away. We had to fire one guy on the last day of Gallows 2, and he was the gaffer, and I guess he'd been everyone. He was an LA guy up in Fresno, and everyone had complaints about him, and we just didn't realize. And then he said something that was just totally rude and disrespectful, and I heard it, and I was like, "See ya, you're out."
I heard about him on day 2, and I wasn't even on the set. I had nothing to do with the movie.
We were really sheltered.
It's like, the guy.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I appreciate being sheltered from that, but when you're also,
I saw it on Facebook. I was like, "What? Who's this guy?"
Everybody else knows about it here.
yeah.
So to end this up, we only got a couple minutes left, but we'll go in order. Like, why do you do this? Like, why are you still a director after all this sort of rigmarole of trying to get what you want and not have enough money and deal with people that might not be good at acting all the time and having to deal with all these other personalities and try to accomplish something? Why do you do it, Ricky Bird?
I'm a complete idiot. Hi, my name's Ricky. No, I just love directing. I love making movies. It's my life. So if I'm not doing this, I don't want to do crap, but I think it's all worth it. And it's fun. And it's like, they're talking about, there's a diverse amount of people. You get to learn stuff from all different walks of life. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. And we entertain people that are having, crappy lives or whatever. They want to escape, and we get to like kind of create worlds for them to go to. So I think that's like, we're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, no, it is. There's something about Ricky that just being on his sets and everything is like, there might not be, not even throwing you under the bus or any of this. But like,
okay.
Maybe there's not enough food, or maybe there's certainly not enough money, or you're working overtime, or whatever it happens to be, like stuff that none of us want to happen on set, but end up happening on really low budgets. But like at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, but just Ricky, he just loves making movies, man. You can't fault. He just wants to make the damn thing. And that's like an infectious thing that always, you're like, I don't want to go do that. It's going to, and you're like, yeah, it's Ricky. Fine. We'll go.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. I sucker in a lot of people that way. It's the baby brown eyes, I'm just going to hold a sign,
Jean-Luc, what do you like? What keeps you going?
I think director is maybe one of like 2 or 3 hats that I wear, but I just love the process of seeing something come from nothing and then exist. The process of like, this idea was a concept I jotted down in text edit, and then it got storyboarded, and I love seeing it through the stages. And now it's something that exists, that people have seen, that people might have been influenced by, and it's in the world. And I think that's such a cool way to have impact on people, hopefully in a good way, but it's a way that we can have impact on people in the world that I don't think a lot of things compare to. But I just love that process of something not existing and now it exists. That's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, I've used those exact words explaining it to people in the past of like, we took a thing that was nothing, and now it is a thing tomorrow, and it will be forever in one way or another.
Right. That's true too. Yeah.
Craig, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like nothing like getting to set super early in the morning, and all of a sudden, all these trucks show up, and all these people show up, and all this equipment starts coming out, and before you know it, like you're making this thing out of nothing. It's the best. But it's also it's a combination of all the things that I'm really interested in life. I mean, it's a combination of storytelling and music and visual art and interpersonal relationships, and all wrapped up in one thing. And I just love all the problem solving, and I love how all of that's wrapped. It's just so amazing to like. There's a way that you get to be on set that you don't get to be anywhere else in life, where you're just dealing with all of this stuff and you're in the zone and you're not thinking about the news and you're not thinking like negative thoughts and but you're just like locked in, and it's the best feeling. It's like the best version of who you can be as a person.
Yeah.
When it's going well.
That flow is something that's really great. And it's weird if I'm going on a movie or whatever, I'm going to be gone for a few weeks ahead of time, 2 weeks out. I'm like, oh no, I'll be able to take care of it. And then once I get into the movie, I'm like, nope, the whole world's gone. Don't give a damn about that. I'm focused.
Yeah, and you'll go through months and months and months, or years and years and years of hell just to have that get back to that feeling again for a couple of days.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Chase the dragon. You guys, what do you think?
For me, I would say all the things that have already been said, but also just
Terrible answer.
Something that I really like is it's that end result. I like working with talent and the whole thing to create a feeling that I'm hoping an audience will get at some other point. People may watch it as it's being constructed and not realize it's going to be something amazing. But in my mind, in our minds, I think we see that someone's going to have a really serious emotional response, or that impact that Jean-Luc talked about, to this very moment. And then they're going to laugh at this moment, and then plotting that out and actually being able to see that come to fruition in a theater, or someone getting scared in a certain moment, or someone crying in a certain moment, or someone feeling like, oh my gosh, I remember my first kiss in a moment, it's going to remind them of things in their own life. But actually, you can tangibly feel that almost. So it's almost like you can cut through it in the theater.
Yeah.
Now, when it's not working, that's really bad. Yeah. But when it is working, that kind of stuff, man, that's what the year and a half, 2, 3, 4 years it takes to get a movie done and in the theaters. And then you feel that. That's the reward. And to have the entire crew that came along with you feel that same thing and understand that and be proud of the work that's been done. Those moments are what makes me have to do another one and improve it and go even bigger and try to go even better.
Yeah, my answer would be very similar to Travis's. My personality actually is unlike Craig. I the problem solving, the prep, it stresses me out, man. I freak out on set. It's both a rush and both the worst thing I'm experiencing all at the same time. But just like Travis, I can't deny the joy of the end product and seeing people watch what we've created. There's nothing like that feeling. It's what made me want to get into movies in the first place. I made a film. I showed it to my friends. They loved it. And I said, well, okay, I got to keep doing this. And so that's always kept me going. And I think it will always keep me going and us going is what the audience's reaction will be. Seeing that and feeling that is like no other thing.
Totally. Okay, well, that wraps it up for us. Thank you guys so much for being. I guess real quick, where do they find you, Ricky? What's the easiest?
Hectic Films.
Hectic Films. Yep. Done. Good. Travis, Chris, where do they find you guys?
At Tremendum Pics on all the social media places, or tremendum.com.
Nice. Craig.
Film work is at parentheticalpictures.com. The advertising agency I'm with is Story Worldwide.
Yeah, very nice. Jean-Luc.
I'm at Scope Studios. It's wearescope.com.
Nice. And I work for Blair Media, co-owner of Blair Media, so you can find me there. At Justin Makes Movies on some other stuff. So that's it for this episode of Shoots.video's Crew Talk. We will talk to you guys later. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Hey, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks,
you guys.
You're welcome.
You might be looking at Shoots.video and thinking, so how does this all work? Is this about A, setting up the whole crew for me, B, just giving me options and having me handle it, or C, something in between? Well, it's D, all of the above. To put it simply, we're here to help you in any way that we can to get the crew and talent you need for your next production. We believe that every level of video production can benefit from a well-maintained list of qualified crew members for every position. This goes for pre-pro, on-set, and for post. Every project is different, so if you need a producer to help manage the decision-making process, then we can totally do that. If you're already a producer and want to build your own crew from scratch, then go for it. We're here to make your next production a success. And if you are crew or talent looking for producers that want you, then you've come to the right place. Sign up now, and also leave a referral for any solid people that you know that are already on here. Thank you for considering Shoots.video, and happy shooting!